Hi, Justin, over here. Welcome to Mexico City.
Thank you.
How can you describe this experience? No, the first Xfinity Series visit to Mexico in 17 years, and you are one of the most experienced drivers that we have. How can you describe the historic weekend for you and for all the NASCAR? And what is your favorite part about Mexico?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, I came in right about the time that the last race was here. So I was always really disappointed that I never got to experience coming down here to Mexico City to race. I've been lucky enough to race in multiple countries all over the world, and the experience down here has actually been a lot of fun, right? I mean, there are logistical things that make it very difficult for NASCAR to race here in Mexico. We've seen those, we've documented all of those, but I think from an international side of things, our sport, we have a ton of fans that are international fans, and being down here, I think that Mexico City has a long history of motorsport, and this racetrack is really, really cool. And I think that if you take all of the things that created challenges for all of us to get down here aside, I'm excited about it, and we've not been on the racetrack, but I remember watching the races from before, and I remember hearing a lot about the stories about the races here and the culture down here and just the fans. I mean, when I look at even today for practice, right, fans filing in here and seeing their energy, that's important, right? We want to go race as a series and as a sport in places where fans want us to be there and want to be a part of it and to watch our sport grow. And I feel like Mexico City is a great part of that. So, hopefully the rest of the weekend goes a lot smoother than it has to this point, and we can put on a great race for the fans. But I think probably bigger than anything too, seeing Xfinity Series come back here is great, but getting the Cup Series here, right? Adding to that international flavor of the Cup Series side, and just really growing the portfolio of what we have to offer for fans, not only in the United States, but all over the world.
Awesome. We'll go to Matt and then to Jerry.
Matt Weaver, The Sporting News. When you race abroad or visit other countries in general, what sort of things are like on the bucket list of things that you want to say that you experience culturally, food, socially, what have you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, food, right? I love food, and when you travel anywhere outside the United States, I mean, we're very lucky in the United States. We have kind of this melting pot of a lot of different varieties of food. But to that point, a lot of times it's Americanized or it's watered down and it's not really culturally correct, right? And so when you come down here to Mexico City and you're able to kind of experience, the different types of food and what kind of differentiates it from American food, that's neat for me, right? I think we race in areas where Austin's a great example, right? There is a heavy culture of Mexican food in that area, but it's still different, right? As soon as you go across the border, it's still different. We walked around a little bit last night downtown and got to see some different areas of Mexico City. And I think it's really hard to, when we go to Sao Paulo, it's very similar, right? When you look at the amount of people per the space that you have, it's very unique. I mean, you can go to New York City and it's the hustle and bustle and it's very, very crowded. You're almost triple the amount of population or 2.5 times the amount of population here in Mexico City or Sao Paulo that you are in New York City. And I think it's hard for sometimes when you're in America to understand just the difference between the two, right? So going out, seeing all the different sides of the city has been really, really neat. And then I think too, racing is different everywhere you go. Right, race fans are different. Their style of racing that they enjoy is different. The flavor of what they want or how they celebrate our sport is different. And so when you come down here, it's been fun to watch Daniel, right? Because I feel like you look at the status or the celebrity style of entrances and different things that he's been able to accomplish down here, and it's really fun to watch. And we were actually joking on the bus on the way in this morning about, we all have kind of home races, right? Areas that are similar to where we live or where we grew up. But as Americans racing in the United States, you don't have that like pride of an entire country, right? Daniel coming down here, this is his country, right? And this is a big, big deal to him. And it's been fun to watch his excitement over this. And I think that's drawn a lot of drivers to being more excited to coming down here. As odd as that sounds, I think that somebody like him who you can see the passion that he kind of exudes and what he is pushed for and tried to drive as far as the sport goes, those are big moments. And so cool to have him as a teammate this weekend on the Xfinity Series side. And obviously, I want to win the race, but I'd love to see him have success in the Xfinity Series car. And I know he's going to be pushing for a win because I think that would be really important for him.
And then with Ryan Truex and his opportunity in mind, certainly you can relate, and you've been in those shoes. And not to say you're being intellectually dishonest in real time when we talk to you, but I'm curious to kind of get you away from that moment now to where you're not thinking about jumping in the 5 car and what that could mean. What is it really like in terms of balancing the expectation, the pressure, the opportunity, what it could mean for your career personally? What is that really like, and what is he going to experience this weekend?
Well, my situation is a little bit different. In every time I jumped in, it was to get Kyle ready, to get the car ready for Kyle, right? Be prepared for Kyle to get there. You set up for the weekend a lot differently. You're trying to set up a car how Kyle would want to drive it versus how I would want to drive it, right? And we spend a lot of time in the simulator and doing things. I listen to Kyle a lot to understand what he likes in a car and the balance that he's looking for. So for me, it's a little bit different, but I look at Charlotte last year, right, filling in, and ended up running the whole race because of the rain, and it was a cool experience. It's kind of hard to put into words, right, because even when I raced in the Cup Series, those moments weren't as significant because you had the next one and you were just pushing to get through and kind of doing the same. I'm not going to call it a grind because it's not boring, right, but the same thing over and over again, right? You're looking at that next week. And I feel like with these scenarios, and I think about Ryan, I'm beyond pumped for Ryan, right? Like the kid has put in a massive amount of work. He's ultra talented. And I think that for him, he's kind of been in a scenario where, I'm not going to call it luck because that's not the right word for it, but just like every time something good is coming his way, something kind of deters it, right? And doesn't allow him to really show what I think is his true potential. And so, I'm excited to see him get the opportunity. And listen, there are a handful of cars in the Cup Series garage that if you could jump behind the wheel, you immediately go, man, this is an amazing opportunity, right? Pinch me because it's not real. The 5 car being one of those, and obviously for him, the 11 car, probably more pressure now that they just won last week too, right? That adds to it. But I think the hard part for a guy like Ryan is you're coming into this weekend, obviously a lot of stress, a lot of unknowns, right? The Cup Series has never been here. We don't know what to expect from the racetrack. We don't know how this race will play out. I don't know how good of a road racer Ryan is. I guess I probably should know. I feel like he's pretty decent, but until he gets out there and experiences that experience, it will be a tough weekend. There's probably a little bit of heartburn on his side. He's wanting to go out there and prove his value, right? But the thing that I love for him is from the time they walk in the door, this morning to the time they leave on Monday morning, that car is his, and he can go out and race it and push himself and push to the limit and try to make the best opportunity for himself. And I wish there were opportunities for more drivers to have that feeling and that understanding of what the pressure and the stress is like. But on the other side of it, that typically it's somebody getting hurt, not a situation of a birth, right? So this is a great scenario, and it allows for a young guy like Ryan that has paid his dues in the sport to get a great opportunity.
We'll go to Jerry, and then we'll go all the way over here to the left.
Jerry Jordan, kicking the tires.net. When did you get into town, and what's your experience been so far?
Yeah, mine was pretty easy. Obviously we made it on time, so that was good. But we got in yesterday, middle of the afternoon. I know there was a plane before us that came yesterday, and then we were on that kind of middle of the afternoon plane. And I think that logistically, as a sport, right, we're very lucky that week in and week out, we very rarely have travel challenges like we had this week, right? And those are out of our control. In New Hampshire this year, we had a similar situation to the one plane. We had an engine that failed on takeoff. We had to turn around and come back, wait on a different plane. It's not out of the realm, right? I would say this week's a little bit more unique in the fact that more people were traveling together, so it displaces a bigger amount of people in one scenario. But as a sport, we're very lucky that we're able to travel the way that we do week in and week out and not have challenges, right? And nor do I think any of us want those challenges. This week's been, for us, it's been pretty easy. Obviously, there was a lot of moving targets that we were trying to get through. But I feel like everybody is chipped in. Everybody has helped each other. I feel like the process, as kind of different as it is, because nobody likes change, right? We've been able to manage all of it, and we'll see what happens. I mean, throughout the course of the weekend, I mean, there's going to be challenges, but you also have to look at it. It's a new venue. We had a lot of these same challenges when we went to Chicago for the first time. We had a lot of these same challenges when we went to Coda for the first time. So you never really know what to expect. And I think that, one thing that's been really neat for me is, when you get in country, right? For us, I don't speak Spanish, right? So there's a language barrier. There's all these things. And between NASCAR and between the racetrack and between all of the services that we've used, it's been a pretty easy process, right? Like, we've been able to manage all of this really, really well. And I think that makes it easier, right? I know that driving haulers across the board and doing all these things, like, it's a challenge, but we've managed, I feel like, the best and the easiest that we can. And I think that puts more pressure on us to have a good race, right? Like, you want to see an event like this when you know that there are challenges, when you know that a lot of people have put a lot of time and energy into a situation like this. It makes you really want to put on a good race, so that it kind of, the fruit of the labor is really solidified. And so we can control that, hopefully, and not be idiots. Turn 1 is going to be a little bit of a challenge just because it is a tight corner. I picture Indy, turn 1. Doesn't always go great, so I'm hoping we all mind our P's and Q's and it's a good day.
And follow up, this track is kind of cool. We took a tour around it yesterday, and the stadium turns, I don't know if you've been there or not, but coming through there, I mean, the first time's going to be like amazing, but you're going to have to do it several times. What is that area going to be like for a driver going through there, surrounded by fans and, zigging and zagging, to get during a race at speed? Yeah,
it was really almost surreal to walk down through there and to kind of see it open up, right? I've been in a lot of different venues over my lifetime, and I don't know that I've ever experienced anything like that. I think that there's a lot of racetracks that have really cool sections, or Coda, we have the stadium section, or like I picture Sao Paulo and Interlagos there. There's kind of a neat section of grandstands that wrap down into the corkscrew in turn 1. Like, those are all really neat, but I don't know that I've ever seen that style of section of a racetrack, and I think it's really cool because it is a very, very small, tight, kind of intricate section, whereas a lot of this racetrack is big and wide and flowy, and you're constantly moving around. That section you are not, so it puts the fans kind of right on top of the action. And I would liken it a lot to Bowman Gray, right? Like, that's the only place I can compare it to, and I feel like comparing Bowman Gray to here in Mexico City is a weird comparison. I don't know that I had that on my bingo card, but I think that what's cool for me is when you just go in there when it's empty, it's still really, really amazing. And we went out to watch the NASCAR Mexico Series earlier, and the amount of fans that are already here and experiencing this makes you realize the importance of just how much motorsport means to the fans that are down here, and that, especially that section.
I'm going to go all the way to the left.
I want to ask about the track limits in this track because NASCAR are using trial packs, especially in the turn 5, 4. What do you think about that? What do you think about the track limits? And the other question is about the altitude. This is the highest altitude in the history of NASCAR. What do you expect with this in the cars?
Yeah, so starting with the track limits, Michelle Jordan and I have had a lot of conversation already kind of this week about the track limits and how the other series that are here tend to really focus in on track limits, and paint and lines are very important. And for us, there are sections with track limits and there are sections without, right? And I think it's going to be interesting because we're in a little bit of a moving target. I think track limits can be relaxed or enforced harder based on how the drivers, how aggressive we are and how much we're trying to make in those sections. The tire packs or the barriers that they've put in at some of the racetrack, different corners of the racetrack, I think are different than what I expected, right? Until you see it and you feel it and understand it. I mean, even so, we've not made a lap on track, and I'm already changing my approach to a couple of different corners. And so I think that's going to be something else that's very interesting to me is how do we race here? Where are the most effective passing zones? I can watch the NASCAR Mexico Series or the Super Coupa cars or the F1 race that's here or whatever, and understand the racing, but it's going to be very different for us, right? Our cars are a little wider, they're a little heavier, a little different power, right? So no other series that races here really tends to be like our cars. So where are those zones at? Where can you cheat the system and make the most time, right? Or where are we going to have to be very tidy and be on the racetrack? So I think that with our limited practice now, especially, it's going to be very important to find those limits without the expense of crashing a car, right? With everything being moved to tomorrow, any mistake can be a big mistake here, right? Any section, if you get off and you make a mistake, maybe other than turn one, it has the potential to be a big moment and damage to your car, right? So without really having the ability to go to a backup car, those are going to be important moments to not have, right? I love it. That's awesome. I need one of those. What was the second question? I'm sorry. Oh, the altitude. So, I didn't do any type of altitude training or I know some of the guys slept in a hyperbaric tent or worked out. I did not do that. I do feel like I've noticed it since we've been here. I ran yesterday when we got here, and my heart rate was up a little bit compared to what would be normal at that same pace. So it is going to be a different mindset or a different challenge. But I also think that as a driver, one of the things that I've loved about our sport is you're always pushing the limits of comfort level in the car and performance of the human body. This is kind of another part of that. And I'm excited to see how I react to it, how my body reacts to it. And I actually feel better than I thought I would. So I'm excited to get in the car and just feel it out, see what it does. But I don't know that any of us know what to expect until we get on the racetrack, other than maybe Daniel, right? He would know what the altitude will do in the car. But I feel like we've all prepared as much as we can, but don't really know what to expect until you get in that moment.
All right, Justin, that's all the time we have with you today. So thank you for joining us, and good luck this weekend.
Yeah, thank you guys all very much. Thanks for covering the sport. Thanks for being here. I know that a lot of folks came down, but a lot of you guys that are from here in Mexico City or in Mexico have come out and support us. So thank you guys all, and we're glad to be here and hopefully put on a good show.
Jared Haas with FrenchStretch.com. Come back soon for more great racing videos. And if you like us, make sure to hit that subscribe button.